Hi, I'm Cliff, and this is my garage. And my 2007 Hummer H3x needs a new battery. Hey, welcome back to the garage. And if this is your first time joining me, thanks for dropping by. So, a few weeks ago, the Hummer started cranking kind of slow, starting slow. And of course, the question becomes, well, what exactly is wrong? Is the battery going bad? Or is it the alternator failing to charge the battery correctly? Or really, worst of all, is the starter going bad? Now, out of the three, you really want it to be the battery going bad because that's the least expensive and the easiest to fix. And in fact, using just a simple multimeter, I was able to determine that it was indeed the battery. Now, if you don't know how to do this, if you don't know how to diagnose the cause of the slow starting using a multimeter, I did a video on that a few months ago. I'll give you a link to it right up in this corner of the screen somewhere. It should be popping up, and you can check that out. On most cars, swapping out the battery is one of the simplest DIY jobs you can do, and it's only going to take maybe 10 minutes. It'll take us longer as I got to stop and do a lot of explaining. But once you know how to do it, it's really straightforward and really simple. However, there are a couple of tricks. Now, one of the things you got to look out for on the Hummer and a lot of other cars is that when you pull the battery out, of course, everything loses power and you have to reset things. You will probably lose the presets on your car's audio system. You may lose presets on things like seat positions that are tied to specific keys, things like that. But one of the more serious things that could happen is that you could accidentally, trigger the immobilizer, the anti-theft system. And in that case, now your car will not start. How do I know this? I learned that the hard way a few years ago when I changed out the battery. The car would not start. I ended up having to spend like a couple $100 to have the car towed up to my mechanic, and he was able to determine that it was the immobilizer and reset it. So, to avoid that, what I do is I use a trickle charger that plugs into one of the power sockets. Now, you need to find a power socket that doesn't turn off or doesn't time out, and you can do that. Well, the way I do it is I've got one of those little things you plug in that gives you USB ports. It has a little LED that lights up. So I just plug that into one of the sockets and I turn the car off. If it stays on, that's good. And then I come back an hour later. If it's still on, well, that's perfect. That's the socket we want to use. And I'll give you the link to the one I use because not only does it do this job for me when I change out a battery, it's also a fantastic battery maintainer. Does a real good job of keeping the charge up on something that you don't use very often. Now, to do the job, you're only going to need a few very simple tools, at least here on the Hummer. So what you're going to need is a 10 millimeter socket on a short extension, a 13 millimeter socket on a long extension. You'll need a socket wrench, of course. Not really necessary or required, but it's good to have some kind of a battery terminal cleaner. You may as well do it while you've got the terminal clamps off. I've also got my handy dandy, very, very favorite stainless steel, well, they're not stainless steel, unless they're chromed, magnetic trays. I love these things. They're like 12 bucks for a set of three. You nest them up, you stick them on the side of your toolbox. Perfect place to store them. I'll give you a link to those, and I'll also find some of these battery terminal cleaners. I'll give you a link to some of those down in the description of the video below. I got kind of lucky on the battery. Advance Auto was having a sale on these, not Duracell, die-hard gold batteries, 20% off. So I saved myself a nice little chunk of change. Now we're all set. We got our battery, we got our trays, we got our tools. Let's do it. I'm going to take and bring the camera around to the other side so you can get a better view. Now, before you get started, make note that the positive terminal is toward the engine. The negative terminal is toward the fender so that you put the new battery in the right orientation. So we just take and pop these little covers up, and these things are a major pain in the butt. I actually modified these. I cut the sides out of them so that it's easy to get a clamp on here if I need to jump start it or I need to jump start something else. The way that these sides came up before, it was almost impossible to get a clamp on this stupid thing. So that's just a mod. Yours are probably going to look different. Let's get our 10mm socket with the short extension, and we're going to loosen up this nut right here. And that loosens up, well, if I turn the ratchet the right way, that helps. That loosens up the clamp. And let's do the same thing with the negative terminal. Right. I'm going to just wiggle this off. Kind of stubborn coming off, especially if there's any corrosion at all. Wow, I can't, because of the stupid thing, I can't get my fingers under it. Ugh, there. Just gotta tuck this over here. And yeah, let's see, pull this back. There is a bit of corrosion on there. We'll need to clean that up. And now let's remove the negative terminal. All right, now, the thing to remember is that since we've got that trickle charger hooked up, this thing is live. So you need to be very careful where you put this thing. And I like to just tuck it right behind here, maybe bend it a bit, because you want to keep it away from this metal edge, because it'll short out against it. Okay, so now the battery is contained in this positive ventilation box. I'm not sure why they do that on here, but this hose comes from like a funnel-shaped thing facing forward inside the grill that forces air up through this hose and into the ventilation box. This just comes right off pretty easily. Okay, and then, let's get this out of the way. Yeah, a little bit more corrosion. Well, we don't need to take care of that because this is the old battery. Now, this is held on by two clips. There's one here, and there's one down in here. And you need to, there's like a spring clip part that pokes up. You push on that and pull the box up. It's easiest to reach in with your hand this way. Find that clip, pull up to get it loose, and then get this one. Same thing, you're going to reach down, you're going to push on that tab and pull the box straight up. It's unbelievably clumsy. There. And you got to watch out because there is a cable, a part of the wiring harness is tied onto the box right here using some kind of a little connector, which is a major pain in the butt because it's hard to get this out of your way, but there it is. Now this strap is held on. You can see this kind of a key slot here, and I'll show you how that hooks together in a minute. But this thing goes over and there's another flange held down by a nut, and that is what our 13mm socket is for. Just get our nut on there and should come right loose. Move the socket wrench. Just do this with fingers. A whole lot quicker. Okay. And I do wish I had a magnetic socket at this moment. Get that out of camera view. I'll just lay it down somewhere. There. Okay. Just carefully reach down here, get hold of that nut, put it into the magnetic tray. There's the other end of it, and now you can see this little tab that fits into that socket, or this little slot here. Set that aside. And if you reach down here, you can get hold of the retainer block and take it out. While you're at it, it's a little block. This thing sits on the bolt coming up that we just removed that nut, and it fits against a flange on the battery to also hold it down. So you're going to have a flange back here holding it down. You have that strap holding it down. And there's also a recess in the front edge of the box where the flange on the front of the battery goes. All right, this is the most, well, one of the most difficult parts of the day is picking this thing up. It's really clumsy. Whole lot of grunting. Oh, good Lord, these things are heavy. And I got my hydraulic cart here to safely land it. All right, we're ready to put the new battery in, so time for some more grunting. Moaning. So heavy. So heavy? So heavy. It's kind of easier to set it on top of this little thing under here. Get a little bit of grip, a little better grip on it, and set it down in, and make sure that you get it in and you slide it forward under that lip we looked at earlier. Negative to that side. Note that I removed the little plastic cap that was on here. Make sure you do that, because if you don't take this off, it don't work so good. Then the holding block, retention block, whatever it's called. I don't know what its actual official name is. Get a strap, hook this tab into that, put it into the big hole, and then slide it up into the slot, and then drop it down over that stud in the back. Last step, grab the nut, reach in here carefully. You don't want to drop it, because if it gets too far out of the way, you got to pull the battery back out to find it. Put it on finger tight. Then go in with the socket. More tighter. Make it more tighter. Make it tighter. And then tighten it up with a socket wrench. Needs to be tight, but you don't want to get ridiculous, because you certainly don't want to strip that stud off. Now we need to get the battery, or the top of the ventilation box back over the battery. This is kind of a pain because of that bit of the wiring harness is hooked to it. You just gotta kind of keep wiggling and finagling, because when you just push it right down, that bottom corner there tends to go inside the box. So it's just a constant wiggling back and forth. Okay, I think I got it. Now you need to go on each side. Make sure you guide those clips into those slots and get them pushed all the way down in there. Pin light is invaluable at this point. Okay, good to go, I think. All looks good. This seems a bit abnormally tight. Oh, I think it's because I've got the cable. Okay, yes, it's the cable up there. That's why this one piece of the wiring harness is pulled so tight. All right, let's start putting this back together. Okay, oh wait, let me take this mask off. This cable clamp was a bit corroded, and the corrosion was really kind of crusty and hard. So instead of trying to work on it forever with a wire brush, I just used a Dremel tool with a wire wheel on it. This Dremel has come in so handy so many times. Variable speed. It's just, when it's the right tool, there is no tool quite like it. And this was really convenient because the wire wheel fits right inside the clamp. It's the perfect size to clean the inside of the clamp out and get it perfectly clean. Just be sure that if you are using one of these things, or you can remove kind of this corrosive stuff here, make sure you're wearing some kind of a mask, because you don't want to be breathing that stuff in. Now that I've got the two clamps all nice and cleaned up, let's start reassembling this. Put this cover back down here and get the clamp back over. Just give it a good wiggle to seat it down as far as possible. And then we'll grab our 10mm socket and tighten this back up on here. One thing about this is there are these little stop blocks built in here to keep the cable from rotating when you tighten it down. The problem is if you let this this protector thing jam all the way against there, I find it's kind of hard to get it to close right. So try to hold the clamp like this, or the cable like this, and tighten it down without letting the cable rotate tight against that that stop block. Get this back on again. Once again, you know, this is live, so keep it clear of any metal and just oh. Does help to put the protector. Well, I don't know if it really helps put these protectors back on, but if you're gonna put them on, you put them on first. The same thing, just then wiggle it back and forth to get it seated as far down on the post as possible. Then same deal, close this up. These things are a pain no matter what, though. I really don't like them. There. Just trying to get them in these little slots sometimes. A genuine challenge. All right. Got that all buttoned back up together. Let's not forget to put on the positive ventilation hose. It's not hard to get on and off. It's not a very tight fit there. One thing I forgot to mention, while I was cleaning the battery cable clamps, I also polished up the posts on the battery by using this end of the battery cleaner. You just push it down over the post and just turn it. I usually just turn it in one direction 2 or 3 times, and that gets it nice and clean, gets any oxidation off of the post before you put this together. So that's a good idea to do. All right, let's try starting this up and see how it does. Okay, first thing, unplug the trickle charger so that it's not plugged into the system. I'm not sure it would hurt anything. I don't think it would, but if I take the chance. All right, that sounded and felt great, nice and strong. We're good to go. Okay, super simple job. Take you about 15 minutes or so, couple of simple hand tools, and it's very, very straightforward. Very much in the ability of your average or maybe even below average DIY mechanic. And you're looking at a pretty significant cost savings. I ended up spending about $150 on the battery. If you were to take this to a mechanic, he would charge you probably in the neighborhood of, let's say, $50 or so, because you figure by the time he factors in ordering the battery and then installing it, 15-20 minutes total work. If you're lucky, he'll only charge you for a half-hour time. Typical time for a mechanic in this area, at least, is about $100 an hour. So you're looking at around $50 for labor, plus you're going to end up paying a small premium on the battery just for the convenience of having them get it for you. So you figure that this job will probably run you around $225. So that's what it would cost in this area. A little lower, a little higher depending on your area. But you can make some significant savings on that by just doing it yourself. You can save, like I said, maybe $75 or so for about 15 minutes work, plus whatever time it takes you to order and go pick up the battery. As always, thank you so much for watching, liking, and sharing my videos. Now, speaking of liking, if you haven't done it yet, please go down there, find that thumbs up button, click on it, and give us a like on this video. That helps so much with YouTube's algorithm and in terms of getting them to recommend us to other people. And if you're not one of my subscribers, and about 99% of the people who watch my videos are not subscribers, you can really, really help me out by subscribing to the channel, going down there and clicking on that big red subscribe button. Not that one, the one down there. That again helps us so much in terms of showing up in YouTube's algorithm and getting recommended. Now, subscribing doesn't cost you a penny. It doesn't cost anything. It's not like a subscription fee. It just says you're interested in this channel. Now, and the second thing is it doesn't mean you're going to get a bunch of emails from me. In fact, I don't send anybody any emails. If you, however, want to keep up with everything I'm doing on the channel, you can also turn on notifications. And the way you do that is you find that bell icon, you click on it, it changes shape to look like it's ringing, and that has turned on notifications, but only for this channel. That way, YouTube will let you know every time that I post new content from here in Cliff's Garage. I'll see you next time.